One of the problems that we faced in this program is management, leadership. Now, if we look at good organizational principles, we know that what the traits of a leader are. And one is to have empathy, and one is to be inquisitive, find out what's going on, empathize, and correct things, move things, change things for the better of whatever the goal is. In this case, we had a goal of recycling. Now, we have to be able to rely on these people. These people are public servants. They're supposed to be serving the public. But my experience is they're more interested in serving themselves. You go into a hearing and the attorney says, I have to check with my client. His client is some bureaucrat who's looking out for himself and not the public. In a hearing on USA Recycling in Sacramento, Administrative Law Judge Diane Vorder said in her decisions that the department's actions demonstrated the public was not served. At one time, a gentleman came in to run the department. His name was Ortiz, and he was open. I was able to talk to him, but we had a number of conversations, and I tried to impress upon him that his agency was imposing underground regulation. And I presented an example to him, and he came back and he said, oh no, you're mistaken. Your interpretation is not correct. And there's a case law that it had been decided in a hearing or a court or something of this nature. Well, later I came to find out that he was one of the people who disparaged and denigrated me professionally and personally in the leadership. And I also know that he brought with him a philosophy that was toxic. It was the denial of due process on steroids. It's take their money first and then adjudicate it when we get around to it. Take their private property. That's what they put up, their money. You're replacing their money. I had an opportunity to talk to him, though, about the time he left. And I asked him, who told you that that had been adjudicated? And he said, oh, they're already gone. Now, the reason I asked him is we'd had another meeting. I met with the leadership on 2 occasions. It was at the behest of Kip Lipper. And the first was over in Senate Rules, Lipper's offices, and Carol Mortensen didn't show up, but Ortiz did with a couple other people. And we were speaking to a specific abuse of power situation that I was dealing with. And Ortiz said, oh, we got a tip. We got an anonymous tip. I PRA'd that anonymous tip. Somehow it never showed up. But they destroyed a man's life because of that. Now, we proceed. Lipper asked for another meeting. It's over at EPA, and everybody in leadership is there except the director. But we had chief counsel, we had the deputy director for recycling, and all of enforcement and certification and other departments in there. This time I took with me a man who'd been the former director of the Office of Administrative Law. I aired my grievances. He spoke to them and said that they had a cultural problem. That cultural problem has never been dealt with. And he'd filed a petition against the department against that same issue I talked to Ortiz about, the same one that had that case history. And this gentleman put in a petition for determination of whether or not that was an underground regulation. And at the meeting, they asked him about that. And he said, oh, there's no doubt, but you will lose. I recommend you file a Section 280. That's a confession, and basically they did. They filed the confession and said that they wouldn't do it anymore, and they've never stopped. Parts of that underground regulation, it was a notice, a memo, continue to be used to this day. It's a part of informal training of staff. because they have no formal training. And that's another serious problem that we've got. These people have never been trained on what the heck due process is, what their rights are, or the participants' rights. In fact, they're told to defy them. And in the conversation with Glenn Beck afterwards, he talked about how the government blames us. And I want you to know, this is a perfect example of how the state has been blaming the participants of this program for years. And they go for the low-hanging fruit. If you're Latino, if you're immigrant, if you don't understand the process, if you don't understand the words, they got you. You're gone. Happened too many times. And I have a few. If we want to create a good audit, let me give some participants names that they should be audited, their files should be audited, and we will definitely have the controller prove an abuse of power. That's it. Watch out for who's appointed to these departments. They must have leadership skills. They must have training and due process. They must know what they're doing. This time, what did we have? Nachbauer's already out. I was afraid when he was appointed that, why was he appointed? He came from Washington, D.C. What was he doing for us back in Washington, D.C.? Us, I mean the state. So maybe not us, the politicians. Why was he put into this position? Why is he already out of this position? He's there for well over a year. Whatever he learned now is lost. Somebody else new is going to come in. Well, right now, they've got a temporary appointment, and this is an attorney who I think has well engineered the art of the denial of due process. Take care.